The city of New York never slept, and neither did Ethan West. As the CEO of one of the most successful financial firms in the country, Ethan's life was a whirlwind of meetings, deals, and endless ambition. He was used to power, to people bowing to his every need. His wealth and influence had earned him respect in boardrooms, but there was one thing he still couldn't seem to get right. Love. Ethan had always believed that love was a weakness. In his world, everything was transactional. People came to him for business, for opportunities, for who he truly was. That was the price of being at the top. The loneliness, the isolation. He had been betrayed once, and it had shaped every relationship after that. Now, Ethan kept his heart under lock and key, convinced that no one could love him for the person he was not when his wealth and success were always in the way. One cold, rainy afternoon, after a grueling day of negotiations, Ethan decided to escape the confines of his office. He needed to clear his mind, and his usual high-end cafe just wasn't going to cut it today. Instead, he found himself walking into a small, cozy coffee shop tucked away on a quiet street in the heart of the city. It was a place he had passed by many times but never thought to visit. Today, it felt like the perfect refuge. He pushed the door open, and the warm smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods hit him instantly. The cafe was modest, with mismatched chairs and tables scattered around, giving it an unpretentious charm. Ethan looked around, his eyes scanning the room. But what caught his attention wasn't the decor, it was the woman behind the counter. Her name was Lily Parker, though Ethan didn't know that yet. What he did know was that she was different from any woman he had ever met. She moved with ease, effortlessly managing the cash register, the espresso machine, and the steady stream of customers without a hint of stress or self-importance. Unlike the women in the high society circles he was used to, Lily wasn't playing a role. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Ethan took a seat at the counter, feeling strangely out of place. He was used to having the best table, the best coffee, the best everything, but here, in this humble cafe, he felt like just another customer. Lily glanced up from the register as she noticed him sitting down. She gave him a polite smile, but it wasn't the kind of smile that made Ethan feel like he was being sized up. It was genuine, warm, and completely unbothered by his presence. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice soft but confident. Ethan leaned back in his chair, momentarily caught off guard by her ease. Most people, especially women, treated him with a level of respect that bordered on reverence, but Lily was different. She wasn't impressed by him. She wasn't impressed by anyone. "For that matter, a black coffee, please," Ethan said, his voice steady. But there was something in the way he spoke, an undercurrent of curiosity that even he couldn't explain. "Coming right up," Lily replied, and with that, she turned to prepare his drink. Ethan watched her work. There was something effortless about the way she moved, like she was completely in tune with the world around her, completely at ease. It made him uneasy. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this way, disarmed by someone who didn't care about who he was or what he had. In a world where appearances mattered most, Lily didn't even seem to notice the tailored suit he wore or the expensive watch on his wrist. He wasn't used to being ignored, not in this way. At least when she returned with his coffee, she set it in front of him and met his gaze. "Here you go. Is there anything else I can get you?" Her eyes were clear, focused, and not at all affected by his wealth or status. "No," Ethan replied, shaking his head. "This is perfect." He took a sip of his coffee, the rich flavor lingering on his tongue. It was strong, bold far cry from the overpriced watered-down drinks he was used to in his usual haunts. For a moment, he actually appreciated the simplicity of it. Lily smiled again, and for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt a genuine sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't a smile of interest or admiration. It was just a smile, a friendly one, and it made him realize something. He had been so focused on building his empire, on achieving success, that he had forgotten what it felt like to connect with someone in a real way. To be seen for who he was, not for what he had. For the next few days, Ethan returned to the cafe. Each time, he ordered the same thing, a black coffee. Each time, Lily greeted him with the same warmth, the same unassuming smile. They exchanged small talk, but nothing more. Ethan never pushed for more. He wasn't sure why, but there was something about her that made him want to respect her boundaries. However, as the days passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that Lily was different. There was no ulterior motive behind her kindness. She wasn't trying to win him over, and she didn't treat him like a VIP, she treated him like a regular person. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan found himself craving that. But Ethan was a man who prided himself on control. He couldn't just let things unfold naturally. He had to know more about Lily. Who was she? Why did she treat him so differently from the women he had known in his life? And most importantly, could she be the one person who saw through the walls he had built around himself? The answer to that question, Ethan was about to find out. But first, he had to make a decision that would change everything. For the next few weeks, Ethan found himself returning to the cafe almost every day. He didn't understand it. He had business meetings to attend, important deals to close, and yet there he was, spending hours in a small corner booth, sipping on black coffee and watching Lily move gracefully behind the counter. There was something magnetic about her, something that drew him in every time he walked through that door. Lily was unlike any woman he had ever met. She didn't fawn over him, didn't throw herself at him because of his wealth or his position. She treated him like a regular person, and that was both refreshing and confusing to Ethan. No woman had ever ignored his status before, and it made him feel vulnerable in a way he wasn't used to. One afternoon, as Ethan sat at his usual table, a thought crossed his mind. What if Lily wasn't just being friendly? What if she was seeing something in him that no one else had? He couldn't ignore the growing feeling in his chest, the pull he felt toward her. The problem was, Ethan didn't trust easily. He had been burned before, and now, more than ever, he needed to know whether Lily cared about him for who he was, or if she was just another woman after the money and the power. That's when the idea hit him. He would test her. He would see if Lily truly cared for him, or if she was just like all the others. And so, Ethan decided to do something drastic. He would pretend to be someone he wasn't, someone who didn't have wealth, status, or the trappings of success. He would be the ordinary man. The man who had no title, no reputation. He would go to the cafe like he had done before, but this time he would dress down, speak less about his life, and see how Lily treated him when she thought he was just a regular guy. The next day, Ethan arrived at the cafe wearing a simple black hoodie and jeans. His luxury car, the one he usually drove to work, was left parked in his garage. Today, he had borrowed a beat-up sedan from a friend. He walked in, feeling out of place in his own skin, but he kept his head high, hoping the act would be convincing enough. Lily was behind the counter, her eyes catching his the moment he walked in. She smiled, but this time, There was no sparkle in her eyes, no recognition of the man he had been pretending to be. She didn't seem to care about his appearance, didn't look twice at the fact that he was dressed so differently. Ethan took a seat at the counter, ordering his usual black coffee, trying to steady his nerves, same as always. Lily asked, her voice light and friendly. There was no trace of the curiosity she usually had when he walked in today. She was just doing her job. Yeah. Just black, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice casual, though his stomach was doing flips as Lily prepared his coffee. Ethan watched her with a strange sense of anticipation. He knew he was playing a game, but what he didn't expect was the strange discomfort that crept up on him. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he wanted to be in control anymore. He didn't want to manipulate Lily's feelings, but he had to know the truth. When she handed him the coffee, their fingers brushed for just a second, and a small spark of something electric passed between them. Ethan's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly masked it with a smile. "Thanks," he said, trying to sound unaffected. Lily smiled back, but it was just a polite gesture. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. She hadn't seemed to notice him as much, hadn't asked about his day or his business. She wasn't treating him like the man he used to be. For the first time, Ethan questioned his own plan. Was this really the right thing to do? Was he just testing her for his own selfish reasons, or did he truly want to know if she cared for him? He spent the next hour at the cafe, reading the newspaper and drinking his coffee, all the while watching Lily. But as the time passed, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was missing. The connection he had felt with her wasn't there today, and it troubled him more than he cared to admit. As he got up to leave, Lily called out to him, "Are you coming in again tomorrow?" She asked, her tone light, but with a hint of curiosity. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'll be around." That night, Ethan lay in bed, his mind racing. He had been so focused on testing Lily that he hadn't realized how much it bothered him when she didn't treat him the way she usually did. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that now he didn't know if he was testing her or testing himself. The next day, he couldn't stay away. He walked into the cafe, this time dressed as he normally did, luxury suit, polished shoes, his usual confident stride. But when he walked in, he didn't feel like the same man. He wasn't sure if he was Ethan West, the CEO, or just Ethan, the guy who had been fooled into thinking love was something you could control. Lily looked up when he walked in, and this time her smile was warm, genuine, back to the usual. She asked, as if nothing had changed. Ethan nodded, but this time he wasn't pretending. "Yeah, black coffee, please." The following days felt like a blur to Ethan. He continued to visit the cafe, ordering his black coffee in the same quiet corner, watching Lily as she moved around with grace. But something had shifted between them, something he hadn't anticipated. His plan to test her had only deepened the emotional rift. And now, more than ever, Ethan felt like a man caught between two worlds. The world of control, power, and success that he knew so well, and the world of vulnerability, honesty, and emotion that he had been avoiding for so long. He couldn't get her out of his head. Every moment he spent with Lily, he found himself wondering if she truly cared for him, or if she just enjoyed the game. Was she just a challenge, or was she something real? But the more Ethan tried to make sense of it all, the more he realized that his feelings for her were far deeper than he had expected. The thought of losing her, of never being able to prove himself to her, was more than he could bear. Lily, for her part, had been trying to keep her distance from Ethan. She couldn't deny the attraction she felt toward him. But after their last conversation, she wasn't sure where they stood anymore. He had been distant, and she had noticed the change in him. He wasn't the same confident, assured man who had walked into her cafe weeks ago. He seemed unsure of himself, like a man caught in a whirlwind of his own emotions. At first, Lily had thought it was just a passing phase. Maybe Ethan was just dealing with the pressures of his work. But as the days went by, she began to question herself. Was it really just that? Or had he been testing her all along? And if so, why? Did he really care for her, or was she just another challenge to conquer? Every time she saw him, she could see the internal struggle in his eyes. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was just lost, and for some reason that made Lily feel both sad and frustrated. She didn't want to be part of a game. She wanted honesty, and she wanted to know if Ethan could truly give her that. One afternoon, as the cafe started to empty, Lily found herself alone with Ethan once again. He had been sitting at the counter for hours, lost in thought. This time, he wasn't hiding behind a different persona. He was just himself. And for the first time, Lily saw the cracks in his carefully constructed exterior. She walked over to him, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't stay silent any longer. The uncertainty, the tension, was too much. "Ethan," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "we need to talk." Ethan looked up at her, his eyes filled with both relief and apprehension. He had been expecting this moment, but he wasn't ready for it, not yet. He had spent so much time running from the truth that now, when it was finally in front of him, he wasn't sure how to face it. "What's on your mind, Lily?" His voice was almost gentle, but there was an underlying hesitation in it. "I need to know what's going on," she said, taking a seat across from him. "I need to know if you're being honest with me, if you really care about me, or if this is just some game for you." Ethan's breath hitched. He had been waiting for this moment, but he wasn't sure how to answer. The words felt heavy in his chest, but he knew he couldn't avoid them any longer. "I don't want to play games, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't want to lose you. But the truth is, I've spent my whole life trying to control everything: my career, my image, my relationships. And when I met you, I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know if you could love me for who I really am, or if you just saw me as another success story. And so, I tried to test you. I tried to make you see if you would love me, not the money, not the status." Lily's eyes softened as she listened, but the pain in her chest didn't go away. She had trusted him enough to open her heart, and now she felt the sting of betrayal. "So you thought I was just after your money?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "No," Ethan said quickly, reaching for her hand. "I never thought that about you, Lily, but I've been so afraid of being hurt again that I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't trust you, and that's what I'm trying to fix now. I'm trying to be the man you deserve, the man who doesn't hide behind walls. But I know I can't make you trust me just by saying the right words. I need to show you that I'm real, that I'm not the man I was before." Lily stared at him, her heart torn between the love she felt for him and the hurt he had caused. She had never wanted to be part of a test, but she had been. And now she had to decide whether or not she could forgive him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the silence hung between them like a cloud, and Ethan could feel the tension in the air. He wasn't sure if he had done enough to prove himself to her, or if she would ever truly trust him again. Finally, Lily took a deep breath, her gaze softening. "I need time, Ethan," she said quietly. "I need time to process all of this. You've hurt me, and I can't just forget it. But I also know that you're not the same man you were when we first met. You're trying, and that means something." Ethan nodded, his heart sinking but also filled with hope. "I'll wait, Lily, however long it takes. I'll prove to you that I'm not playing games, that this is real." Lily stood up, her expression still uncertain but open. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, "but I'm willing to try. Just ... Don't hide from me anymore." As Lily walked away, Ethan sat back in his chair, the weight of the moment settling in. He had finally faced the truth, and now he had to prove that he was worthy of the love he had always been too afraid to accept. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he was willing to let go of control and take the leap. And in that moment, Ethan knew one thing for certain: he would fight for her. He would fight for their future, no matter what it took. After their conversation, Ethan and Lily both found themselves lost in their own thoughts. The air between them had shifted, no longer filled with unspoken words, but still heavy with uncertainty. They had taken a step forward, but they both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight, and the scars of Ethan's past couldn't be erased in a single conversation. For the first time in weeks, Ethan tried to relax, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking on a thin thread. Every moment he spent with Lily, every step they took toward rebuilding what they had, felt like a test. He had promised to be honest with her, to show her who he truly was. But could he? Could he let go of the walls he had built around himself for so long? Lily, on the other hand, was struggling with her own doubts. She had been hurt before, and Ethan's confession had opened up old wounds. She wanted to believe in him, wanted to trust him, but the fear of being hurt again lingered in the back of her mind. She couldn't just ignore the pain he had caused her, but she also knew that if she wanted something real with him, she had to give him a chance. For the past few days, Lily had kept her distance. She wasn't sure if she was ready to dive back in, but at the same time, she missed Ethan. She missed the man she had started to get to know, the man who had shown her vulnerability, and the man who had promised to change. But the truth was, she didn't know if she could believe it. Could he really change? It was a rainy Tuesday evening when Ethan decided to make things right again. He had spent days reflecting on everything that had happened, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't keep waiting for things to magically fix themselves. He had to show Lily that he was serious about their future, and he had to do it now. He texted her, asking if they could meet. He wanted to talk. He needed to be honest with her, not just about his past, but about what he wanted moving forward. Lily replied a few minutes later, "I think we need to talk to," when they met. Ethan could tell that things were different. There was a quiet tension between them, and Lily's eyes didn't shine the way they used to. The warmth, the openness had faded, but she was still there, still willing to try. They sat down at the same coffee shop where they had shared their first real conversation. The place felt oddly comforting, yet today it felt like a battleground. Ethan could feel the weight of the moment in every breath he took. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "About what I've done, about how I've hurt you. I know I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. I want to prove to you that I'm not the same man I was before." Lily looked at him, her expression unreadable. She wasn't angry, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made Ethan's heart ache. "I don't know if I can trust you again." "Ethan," Lily said softly, her voice almost a whisper, "I've been burned before. I've let my guard down, and I've ended up getting hurt. And now I don't know if I can believe that things will be different this time." Ethan nodded, understanding the depth of her pain. He had done that to her. He had made her question everything, and now he was asking her to take a leap of faith. "I know it's not easy," Ethan said, his voice filled with regret. "I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm asking you to give me a chance, to let me prove to you that I'm not the same man who ran away from love." Lily stayed silent for a long moment, her eyes locked on his. Ethan could see the hesitation in her gaze, the struggle inside her heart. But there was something else, a flicker of hope, a flicker of something that told him that, maybe, just maybe, she was willing to try again. "I'm scared, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm scared of getting hurt again. But I don't want to keep living in fear. I want to believe in this. I want to believe in you." Ethan's heart raced. This was at the moment he had been waiting for, the moment where everything could change. He reached for her hand, his fingers trembling slightly, but Lily didn't pull away. Instead, she held his hand, her grip soft but firm. "I will prove it to you, Lily," Ethan said, his voice full of resolve. "I won't hide anymore. I won't keep running from this. I'll show you that I'm willing to fight for us. I'll fight for you." Lily looked at him, her eyes softening. "I need to see it, Ethan. Words are easy, but actions speak louder." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'm ready to show you." The next few weeks were filled with slow, steady progress. Ethan didn't try to rush things. He didn't make grand promises or try to control the situation. Instead, he focused on showing Lily, through his actions, that he was serious. He spent time with her, listened to her, and allowed her to see the side of him that no one else had ever seen. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like he wasn't living for himself, but for someone else. He was vulnerable, and though it scared him, it also made him feel alive in a way he hadn't experienced before. Lily, too, started to let her guard down. She still had moments of doubt, but she could see the change in him. She could feel his sincerity, and little by little, she started to trust him again. It wasn't easy, and there were still bumps along the way. But for the first time in a long time, both of them felt like they were on the same page. One evening, after a long walk through the city, Lily turned to Ethan, her eyes searching his face. "Ethan," she said softly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I want to be with you. I think I'm ready to take that step." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "I'll be here, Lily, no matter what. We'll face everything together." And in that moment, both of them knew they had come a long way, and while the future was still uncertain, they were willing to face it side by side. It had been a month since Ethan and Lily had started to rebuild their relationship. Slowly but surely, they were getting closer. The walls Ethan had built around himself had begun to crumble, and for the first time in years, he found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. They spent weekends together, taking long walks in the park, cooking dinner at her apartment, and having late-night conversations that went deep into their fears, dreams, and hopes for the future. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt. Moments where Lily wondered if she had truly forgiven him, but they were trying. They were trying to make it work. but just when things were starting to settle into a routine, the past had a way of creeping back in. It all started with a phone call. One evening, as Ethan and Lily were sitting on the couch, sipping wine and talking about their future, Ethan's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, his stomach dropping when he saw the name on the screen. Carla. Lily noticed the shift in his expression immediately. She knew about Carla. He had been open with her about his past, but that didn't mean she was ready to face it again. Carla? Lily asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. Ethan hesitated. He had promised to be transparent with her, but the thought of facing Carla again stirred up a whirlwind of emotions. The last time they had spoken, it had been chaotic, messy, and now, with everything going well with Lily, he didn't know if he was ready to deal with the ghosts of his past. "I should pick up," Ethan said quietly, excusing himself. He walked to the other room, leaving Lily behind on the couch. She could hear his muffled voice, but couldn't make out the words. After a few minutes, Ethan returned, his face darker than before. "Everything okay?" Lily asked, trying to gauge his mood. "Yeah," Ethan replied, though his voice didn't carry the usual warmth. "She wants to meet." "It's about the baby." Lily's heart skipped a beat. Ethan had told her about Carla's pregnancy before, but hearing it again made the weight of the situation feel too heavy. She had accepted that this was part of his past, but now it was looming over their present. When Lily asked, her voice calm but her insides twisting with unease. "Tomorrow afternoon," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't want to meet with her, but she insists. I need to figure this out, for both of us." Lily stayed silent, processing the words that hung in the air. She understood that Ethan had to face the sit was a part of his life, a part of the responsibility he had to take on. But she also knew that facing Carla could change everything between them. She wasn't sure if she was ready to confront the reality of Ethan's past again. Not when they had just started to find their footing. "I know this is hard," Ethan continued, his voice softening. "But I need you to understand. I need to meet her, not because I want to, but because I have to. I can't keep avoiding it." Lily nodded, her heart heavy. "I get it, but I need you to be honest with me. After all of this, I need to know where I stand, where we stand." Ethan reached for her hand, his thumb gently brushing over her skin. "I'm not going anywhere, Lily, but I understand if this makes you question things. I don't want you to feel like you're second place in my life." Lily looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. She knew he was trying. He was trying to be the man she needed him to be, but that didn't make the situation any easier. "I'm not questioning my feelings for you," Lily said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I need to know you're choosing me, that you're choosing us, not just because it's convenient, but because it's real." Ethan squeezed her hand. "I'm choosing you, Lily, always." The next day, Ethan met Carla. It was a brief meeting, but it was loaded with tension. Carla had insisted on meeting at a small cafe near Ethan's office, and as soon as he saw her sitting there, the weight of their past came rushing back. She was still the same woman, still holding on to the remnants of their past relationship, and she made it clear that she wasn't going to let go of him that easily. "I don't want to do this alone." "Ethan," Carla said, her voice softer than usual, "we're in this together. We always were." Ethan's stomach twisted. "We're not together, Carla. You know that. I'm with Lily now, and I need to focus on building a future with her. I can't keep living in the past." Carla's eyes hardened, but she didn't argue. Instead, she nodded, as though she knew she had no choice. I understand, but I still need you to be involved. The baby is yours, Ethan, and I'm not asking you to come back to me. I'm asking you to be there for our child. Ethan sighed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. I'll do what I need to do. For the baby. As the meeting ended, Ethan walked out of the cafe feeling like his world had been turned upside down. He had tried to move on from Carla, but she was still there, still holding a piece of him. And now, she had a child on the way, something he couldn't ignore. When he returned home, he found Lily sitting on the couch, her eyes filled with concern. She had been waiting for him, but he wasn't sure how to face her. Ethan, Lily said softly, how did it go? Ethan walked over to her, his heart heavy with the burden of the conversation. He sat down beside her, taking a deep breath. It was difficult, he said quietly. Carla's not going away, and I need to be there for the baby. But that doesn't change how I feel about you, Lily. I want to be with you. I'm choosing you. Lily felt a lump form in her throat. I don't know if I can do this, Ethan, she whispered. I don't know if I can share you with her. With the past, Ethan reached for her hand, his voice full of resolve. I'm not asking you to share me, Lily. I'm asking you to trust me, to believe that I'm choosing you, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. The days after Ethan's meeting with Carla was some of the most difficult for him. He had promised Lily that he was choosing her, but the reality of the situation kept weighing heavily on his mind. Carla wasn't going away, and neither was the responsibility that came with the child she was carrying. Ethan had tried to keep his emotions in check, but the pressure of it all was starting to take its toll. Lily, for her part, had been quieter than usual. She had given Ethan the space he needed to process everything, but the distance between them was palpable. It wasn't just the situation with Carla. It was everything. The trust they had been building was fragile, and now, with the shadows of Ethan's past creeping in, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being left behind. It was a Saturday morning when the breaking point came. Ethan had spent the past few days going back and forth between the office and his obligations with Carla. His mind was constantly occupied with the mess he was trying to untangle, and the guilt of not being able to fully focus on Lily was eating him alive. He hadn't meant to neglect her, but in the chaos of everything, he had. Lily had tried to keep her feelings to herself, not wanting to burden Ethan when he was already dealing with so much. But as the days went by, the weight of the situation began to build. She couldn't ignore the fact that Ethan was no longer fully present with her. The man she had been falling in love with seemed distant, distracted, and torn between his past and his future. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she couldn't wait forever for him to make a decision. She had waited patiently, but now the fear of being stuck in a cycle of uncertainty was too much. It started with a simple conversation, but it quickly escalated. Ethan walked into the apartment after another long day. He could tell Lily was upset the moment he saw her sitting on the couch, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. There was a tension in the air that he hadn't felt before. Lily, Ethan said softly, stepping toward her. What's going on? Lily didn't look up at him right away. She had been holding back her emotions for so long, but now the dam was about to break. I don't know how much more I can take, Ethan, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I've been patient, I've been understanding, but you're not the same anymore. You've been distracted, distant, and I don't know if I can keep waiting for you to figure things out. Ethan's heart sank. He knew this conversation was coming, but he didn't expect it to hit him like this. "Lily, please." "No," Lily interrupted, standing up. "I'm not asking for you to fix everything. I'm asking for you to be here. For me. You keep saying you're choosing me, but I don't see it. I don't feel it." Ethan's chest tightened as the weight of her words hit him. He knew she was right. He had been so focused on dealing with Carla's situation, so wrapped up in his responsibilities, that he had forgotten what really mattered her. He had forgotten that Lily needed him to be present, to be emotionally available. "I'm trying, Lily," he said, his voice low, his eyes searching hers. "I swear, I am. But everything is falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to balance all of this." Lily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm not asking you to fix everything, Ethan. I'm asking you to choose me. I can't be part of this anymore if you're not fully in it. I need to know that you're here, that you're with me, not just because you have to be, but because you want to be." There was a silence between them, thick with unspoken emotions. Ethan reached out, but Lily stepped back, pulling away from him. Her heart was torn, but she knew deep down that she couldn't keep waiting for a man who wasn't sure about what he wanted. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I need space, Ethan. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. But I can't keep living like this, waiting for you to make a choice." Ethan stood frozen in place, the words hitting him like a punch to the stomach. "Lily, please don't leave me. I don't want to lose you." But Lily didn't answer. She simply turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the middle of the room. The weight of the decision he had been avoiding crashing down on him. The following days were a blur for Ethan. He tried calling Lily, texting her, but she didn't respond. The silence between them was deafening, and the more he thought about it, the more he realized how much he had taken her for granted. He had been so caught up in his responsibilities, in his past, that he hadn't given her the attention she deserved. And now he was paying the price. He couldn't live with the thought of losing her. He had made mistakes, and he knew it. But he also knew that he wasn't the same man he had been before. He had changed. He had to prove that to her, to show her that he was ready to fight for their future. One evening, Ethan stood outside Lily's apartment, his heart racing. He had waited long enough. He had to face the truth. He had to let go of his past and fight for the woman he loved. When Lily opened the door, she was surprised to see him standing there. Her expression was guarded, but she didn't shut the door in his face. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness right away," Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. I can't change the past, but I can change what happens next. For you, for us." Lily stared at him for a moment, her heart torn. She had wanted him to fight for her. But could she trust him again? "I'm scared, Ethan," she whispered. "I'm scared that I'll get hurt again." Ethan reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I'm scared too, Lily, but I'm ready to face that fear. I'm ready to fight for us. I won't make the same mistakes again." For a long moment, they stood there, locked in each other's gaze. Ethan knew that they still had a long way to go, but in that moment, he was willing to do whatever it took to prove his love, and Lily, despite the fear that gripped her heart, knew that this was the man she had always hoped he would be. The following days were filled with silence between Ethan and Lily, a painful silence that neither of them could escape. Ethan tried to reach out, But Lily was firm in her need for space. She needed to process everything that had happened, the lies, the trust that had been broken, and the choices they both had to make. Ethan knew he couldn't rush her. He had already made enough mistakes. Now it was time to give her the space she needed, but also to show her that he was still fighting for them. Every night, as he sat alone in his apartment, Ethan thought about the future he had dreamed of, one that included Lily by his side. The image of her smiling, laughing, was all he could focus on. He had spent so much of his life controlling every aspect of his career, his relationships, but now, more than ever, he realized that love couldn't be controlled. It had to be free. It had to be real. He wasn't sure how to fix things. He wasn't sure if Lily could ever forgive him for what he had done. But he knew one thing: he couldn't let her go. He loved her more than anything. For Lily, the days without Ethan felt like an endless ache. She had tried to be strong, to push him away and protect herself, but the truth was, she missed him. She missed the man who had shown her vulnerability, who had opened up in ways she hadn't thought possible. She had always wanted someone to love her for who she was, not for what she could offer, and Ethan, despite all his flaws, had given her that, but the fear lingered. She had let herself fall for him, let herself trust him, only to be hurt by the very man she had believed in. Could she trust him again? Could she let go of the fear that he would hurt her once more? It was a question she hadn't been able to answer. It was late one evening when Lily found herself standing on the balcony of her apartment, staring out at the city lights. The cool air brushed against her skin, but she barely felt it. She was lost in thought, wrestling with the feelings inside her. Ethan's face, his words, the promise of a future, they all filled her mind. Swirling around like a storm, she heard a knock at her door, soft but persistent. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She knew it was Ethan. He had been trying to reach her for days, but she hadn't been ready to face him. She hadn't been ready to forgive him. But tonight, something felt different. Maybe it was time she opened the door, and there he stood, Ethan, looking just as he had the day they met, yet somehow different. His eyes were filled with sincerity, but also with fear of losing her, fear of not being enough. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the man who controlled everything. He was the man who had everything to lose. "I need to talk to you," Ethan said quietly, his voice filled with vulnerability. Lily nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The silence between them was thick, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had shared a journey, a silence that held both pain and hope. Ethan walked into the living room, his eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. But tonight, everything felt different. He felt different. He wasn't the man who had built an empire. He wasn't the man who had hidden behind walls. Tonight, he was just Ethan, the man who loved Lily, the man who needed her to believe in him. Lily sat down on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't know what to say, but she knew this was the moment that would determine everything. She had to decide if she was willing to take a leap of faith. "I've spent my whole life trying to control everything," Ethan began, his voice trembling slightly. "I've been so focused on work, on success, on keeping everything perfect, that I forgot what really mattered. What really matters is you, Lily. And I've been so afraid of losing you that I almost did." Lily looked at him, her heart aching. "Ethan, I'm scared. I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared that if I let you in, I'll just be disappointed." Ethan stepped closer, kneeling in front of her. "I can't promise that things will be perfect. I can't promise that I won't make mistakes again. But what I can promise is that I'll spend every day showing you that I love you. I'll fight for you. I'll fight for us. Because I know now that without you, I have nothing." Tears filled Lily's eyes, and she blinked them away, feeling a weight lift from her chest. She had never been good at trusting, never been good at letting people in. But here, in front of her, was the man she loved, the man who had made mistakes but was trying to make it right. She knew he wasn't perfect, but he was real, and that was all she needed. "I don't know if I can trust you again," Lily whispered, her voice breaking, "but I want to try. I want to believe in this." In us, Ethan's heart soared as he reached for her hand. "Then let's try, together, one step at a time." They sat together in silence, the weight of their past still lingering but no longer suffocating them. Ethan didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. He was ready to face it, no matter what. With Lily by his side, he believed they could build something real, something lasting. Lily squeezed his hand, the warmth of his touch filling her with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. They had both been hurt, both had fears to overcome, but tonight they had taken the first step toward healing, toward a future they could face together. The weeks following their heart-to-heart conversation marked a delicate balance between hope and uncertainty. Ethan and Lily had agreed to take it slow, to rebuild their relationship brick by brick. Ethan had committed himself to proving that he could be the man Lily deserved, and Lily, though hesitant, had begun to open her heart to him again. They were both still navigating the pain of their past, but each day brought a new opportunity for growth. However, while their bond had begun to heal, the shadows of Ethan's past still loomed over them. One evening, after a quiet dinner together at Lily's apartment, Ethan received an unexpected phone call. He had been trying to disconnect from work, no emails, no phone calls, but he knew that with his position. That was easier said than done. The call was from one of his closest colleagues, Marcus, a trusted advisor who had been with him through thick and thin. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about the company. There's been a breach in our security systems, and we're looking at a potential financial disaster." Marcus's voice was tense on the other end of the line. Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew the company had been facing some challenges, but he hadn't expected things to take a turn like this. He tried to remain calm, but the urgency in Marcus's voice made his anxiety flare. "I'll be there in an hour," Ethan said, his mind already running through possible solutions. "I'll take care of it." As he ended the call, his gaze drifted to Lily, who was sitting across from him, her soft eyes meeting his. She could tell immediately that something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice steady, but concern clearly written on her face. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustration and stress weighing heavily on him. "It's work. There's been a major breach, and I need to go handle it." "I'm sorry. I know it's late." Lily stood up, walking toward him. "Ethan," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you've been putting work first for so long. And I understand that, but you can't keep doing this. You can't keep throwing yourself into your work every time things get tough." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. "I know, I just... I have to fix this, Lily. I have to make sure everything is okay." Lily placed a hand on his shoulder, and for a moment, the weight of the situation seemed to lift. "I understand, but don't forget about us. Don't forget about what we're trying to build here. I can't be with someone who isn't present, who isn't emotionally available." Ethan looked at her, the words from earlier still fresh in his mind. He had promised to choose her, but in that moment, He realized that his commitment to work had always been his default, and it was time to change that. "You're right," Ethan said, his voice soft but resolute. "I'm choosing you, Lily. I won't let work take over anymore." Lily's eyes softened. "I believe you, but you have to show me. Actions, not just words." Ethan spent the next hour pacing the apartment, torn between his duty to the company and his promise to Lily. He had always prided himself on being the man who could juggle everything, but now the reality was sinking in. The balance was fragile, and the one thing that had always been missing in his life, his emotional connection with Lily, was now the thing he had to prioritize. After a few moments, Ethan walked back to Lily, his mind made up. "I'll call Marcus. I'll handle things remotely for now. But I'm staying here with you." Lily smiled, her heart swelling with relief. She knew this wouldn't be easy for Ethan. He had spent years building his empire, and letting go of control was a challenge he hadn't fully accepted until now. But this was the moment that would define their future. Could he put her and their relationship before his work? As the evening continued, Ethan and Lily spent time together, talking and laughing, reconnecting in a way they hadn't been able to for a while. For the first time in what felt like ages, Ethan felt a sense of peace. He had made the right choice, but he also knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Work would always be there, always demanding his attention. But now he had someone who mattered more than anything else. The next day, things began to shift. Ethan kept his promise. Instead of immersing himself in work, he focused on his relationship with Lily. They spent the day together, doing the simple things that made them happy: cooking dinner, taking walks, sharing stories about their pasts. They had moments of doubt, of course, but each day brought them closer to the life they both wanted. But the real test came the following week, when a major investor in Ethan's company threatened to pull out due to the security breach. It was the kind of crisis that could unravel everything Ethan had worked so hard for. He knew he had to take action, and this time he had to make a choice. Would he go to the office, throw himself back into work, and risk losing Lily's trust? Or would he find a way to handle this crisis without sacrificing the future he was building with her? It was an early morning when Ethan faced his decision. He stood by the window, staring out at the city, his mind racing. He had spent so much time building his business, but now he saw his priorities in a new light. The work would always be there, but Lily, she might not always be. He turned to face her as she walked into the living room, her eyes still half asleep but filled with warmth. "I'm going to handle this," he said, his voice steady. "But I'm not leaving you behind. This time, I'm doing things differently." Lily smiled softly, a hint of tears in her eyes. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. I know you're trying, and that means more than anything." Ethan walked over to her, taking her hands in his. "I don't want to lose you, Lily. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm ready to fight for us." Lily squeezed his hands, her heart full of love for the man standing before her. "We'll get through this, together." The following weeks passed by in a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and endless hours spent trying to repair the damage the company had suffered. Ethan had dedicated himself entirely to the crisis, working harder than he ever had before. But this time, it was different. He was no longer the man who buried himself in work to escape his feelings. He was still the CEO, but he was also someone who had learned to value the people around him, the people who mattered most. Lily had been there, by his side through it all. She knew how hard it was for Ethan to let go of control, to trust others, but she also saw the changes in him. He was no longer the cold, distant man he had been before. He was more present, more engaged, and for the first time, Lily believed that they could build something real together. But the real test came when Ethan received an ultimatum from the board of directors. They had found out about the breach and the financial fallout, and they demanded that Ethan make a choice: either fix the company and secure its future, or step down as CEO. The pressure was mounting, and Ethan had to act fast. It was a moment that could define his future, not just professionally, but personally. Ethan sat at his desk, the weight of the decision hanging over him like a storm cloud. He had spent years building his company, but now he found himself questioning everything. His heart told him to fight for the future of the company, but his mind kept drifting back to Lily, the woman who had been there for him when everything seemed to be falling apart. He had always prided himself on his ability to control everything. But now, for the first time, he realized that control had never brought him happiness. He had built his empire, but at what cost? He had neglected the one thing that truly mattered: his relationship with Lily. Lily had been waiting for Ethan to make a decision. She knew he was torn between his career and their future together, and she understood the weight of the choice he had to make. But deep down, she had her own fears. Could she trust that Ethan had truly changed? Could she be with a man who was constantly pulled between his work and his personal life? Was their love strong enough to weather these storms? She had spent so much time doubting him, doubting herself. But now she had to decide if she was willing to continue down this uncertain path, or if she would walk away for good. That evening, Ethan came home late, his face tired but determined. Lily was waiting for him in the living room, her eyes searching his as he entered the room. "Ethan," she said softly, standing up to face him, "have you made a decision?" Ethan looked at her, his heart heavy. "I've been thinking about it a lot, Lily. I don't want to lose you, and I know I've put you through a lot. But I also don't want to walk away from everything I've worked for." Lily stepped closer, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Ethan, I love you, but love isn't enough. We've been through too much. You've promised me that you're choosing us, but I need to see it. I need to see that you're not just talking, but that you're really ready to make me a priority." Ethan's chest tightened. "I'm ready, Lily. I'm choosing you. I'm not walking away from you." Lily took a deep breath, her gaze softening. "Then prove it, Ethan. Prove that I'm not just a backup plan. Prove that you're willing to fight for us, for our future." Ethan nodded, determination filling his eyes. "I will, I promise." The next morning, Ethan made the call. He told the board of directors that he was stepping down as CEO of the company, effective immediately. It was a decision that shocked everyone, especially the people who had worked with him for years. But Ethan knew it was the right choice. He had spent too much of his life focused on his career, and now he was ready to put his personal life first. It had been a few months since Ethan made his decision to step down from the company. The transition wasn't easy, and there were many sacrifices to be made. But with each passing day, he felt lighter, more at peace. He and Lily had spent more time together, getting to know each other in ways they hadn't before. They went on long walks, traveled to new places, and simply enjoyed being with each other, without the constant pressure of work looming over them. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt like he was truly living not for his career, not for the approval of others, but for himself and the woman he loved. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Ethan turned to Lily, his heart filled with emotion. "I never thought I'd say this," he began, "but stepping down from the company was the best decision I've ever made. Not just for me, but for us." Lily smiled, her eyes soft with love. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. I know it wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. We've come so far." Ethan took her hand, his fingers gently brushing hers. "I don't ever want to lose you again, Lily. I'm choosing you every day, for the rest of my life." Lily's heart swelled with happiness as she leaned in to kiss him. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was everything they had both needed: love, trust, and the willingness to face the future together. As they held each other close, Ethan realized that the future was no longer about wealth, power, or control. It was about love, commitment, and the simple moments that made life worth living. And for the first time, he was ready to face that future with Lily by his side.